Hi, this is Austin, host of the Matt and Board podcast, and you are listening to episode 10 of the FILIGHTER podcast. Enjoy.
Another day, another way. Sometimes the song beats the ground. Another day, yet another way. Sometimes the rain falls on down. Another day, another setting for another way.
Are you a millennial, Gen Xer, or a young boomer? Do you want to learn more about financial independence? Are you contemplating or already in early retirement? The FILIGHTER podcast is for you. The FILIGHTER podcast highlights, or as we like to say, FILIGHTs, issues around your financial independence. Join the community as we explore millennial-boomer relationships and pass the best lessons down to next-gen Fi millennials, working to get traction and establish their healthy financial habits and their relationship with money. We will talk about FIRE, from FU money to early retirement, and all the stuff in between. We'll dig into late boomers and Gen Xers considering early retirement, preparing for the possibility and making it happen with the execution of their strategy to make early retirement a reality.
In the sun, in the rain, baby, yeah, I'll do the same.
Hello and welcome to the milestone episode 10 of the FILIGHTER podcast. I'm Lambo, the creator and host of the FILIGHTER podcast and the FILIGHTER.com website and media hub. My goal is to fill these podcasts with interesting content to build your confidence and competence in making personal finance and lifestyle decisions. Before we get into the show, please remember our disclaimer. I want to remind each of our listeners that content in this podcast, including any show notes or links, the FILIGHTER blog, and the FILIGHTER website, are entirely educational or entertainment in nature. You should seek a certified professional for tax, investment, or legal advice. FILIGHTER and its creators accept no responsibility or liability for any actions or activities you may take based on anything discussed on the website, podcast, postings, or comments. Okay, let's get into today's show. Today on the FILIGHTER podcast, I'd like to share a few points of celebration, as well as some continuing tips to move each of you, our listeners, and those around you closer to financial independence. Today's episode will be more qualitative than quantitative in nature, focusing more on lifestyle issues, as these too are critical for your healthy pursuit of financial independence. Specifically, we'll cover Red X months, taking action for change, need for community, and honoring your commitments to your passion or what you value. First, I want to apologize to those of you that have noticed the delay in the release of this episode. Like many of you, I find life to ebb and flow, and the opportunity to consistently produce content is variable in nature and quite challenging. I've said many times that where you spend your time shows what you truly value. My experiences in recent months have reflected my core values, objectives, and goals with one major exception. That exception being the FILIGHTER podcast. I realize it's time to shift gears, get some traction, and recommit to efforts that reflect what I value with the actions I take to make them a reality. With that segue, we have today's inspirational quote from Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Ultimately, this is truly what I hope to deliver to each of our FILIGHTERs. My happiest moments are when someone shares with me an action they have taken as a result of inspirational words or contents shared on the FILIGHTER podcast. Brad and Jonathan on the Choose 5 podcast have a term I really like. It's called the Red X month, a month when you just block out your calendar and take a 4-week break and spend time with family or whatever you need to recharge, reflect, or recover from the day-to-day grind, or maybe even have an opportunity to think and contemplate new opportunities and ventures. Looking back, I kind of took a whole second quarter off for these type of activities. I'd call it the Red X quarter in my case. We took a short family vacation to visit our out-of-state son, embarking on our first return to air travel in almost 2 years. We were ecstatic to apply canceled travel credits to new flights, and all 4 of us flew up to see him and make many new friends. Shortly after that trip, we celebrated June birthdays, a heavy month for our families, including my birthday as well. More recently, I completed a mission trip to East Texas with a large group of youth and adults. On this trip, we helped many families with several newly constructed wheelchair ramps, home maintenance, painting, landscaping, and other projects. 2 sites that I was supporting both constructed wheelchair ramps for their clients. The sweltering days were filled with productive time on site, devotional lunches with clients, and evening activities and worship. At the end of the week, we celebrated the experience in all 3 worship services at church. And if that wasn't enough of a blessing, we were reunited after almost 2 years with a cross-cultural family serving in the European region. There were happy tears and a great luncheon update on their activities and lives abroad. I often felt during my career that a sabbatical was really what I needed. Having left the W-2 world, I mistakenly thought I would have time for anything I wanted to pursue. Ha, joke's on me. Not so, I have learned. We can still get so engulfed that we desperately need a Red X break to allow for soul healing spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Okay, enough on reflections. Let's talk about the FILIGHTER podcast. I considered several ideas for how to make episode 10 special and made more than one false start. This is actually the 3rd attempt. I had created more complexity and concern in my head that it had to be something remarkable when ultimately it's just the next episode in what I anticipate being many, many more episodes. One of the things I'd like to share is our new music. You heard it at the intro in the show. I thought it was time to freshen up this intro music with a song laced with inspirational lyrics that may resonate in each of your journeys to financial independence. The song title is Another Day. This is one of many tunes from singer-songwriter MJ Torrance. If you're interested in this song or more of her music, it can be found in both iTunes or Spotify. I'll include information about the song in the show notes. I've known Mary Jo about 50 years and literally just had a great call with her catching up. I don't know what it is, but it seems like the people you grow up with are easily reconnected. The 15 years since we last talked just melted away. She and I both came from large families, and there were lots of updates to take in on both sides. Anyway, it was great to share with each other all the twists and turns that have happened and make us who we are and ground our perspectives. Okay, I said there were some cool lyrics that were even inspirational. Specifically those lyrics, another day, another way. Sometimes the sun just beats the ground. Another day, another way. Sometimes the rain keeps falling on down. Another day, another setting for another way. I try to say them without singing them. It's really hard. This tune is on several of my playlists, and over the years, I play it and am inspired to get moving with whatever task is ahead of me. I hope this happy energy and thought to keep on keeping on resonates with each of you. I'm thankful she licensed Another Day for use on the FILIGHTER podcast. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see MJ at our 40th high school reunion this fall. I've recently done a bit of traveling and attended a few weddings. During these outings, I ran into several people that were podcast listeners. Oddly, I didn't bring it up this time, that is. I was reminded that you never know who listens to your content or how they can benefit from the material we cover on the FILIGHTER podcast. Let's get into today's objectives. Today's content will cover Red X months, taking action for change, need for community, even a podcasting community, and honoring your commitments to your passion or what you value. Segment 1, Red X. Earlier, we talked a little about my Red X quarter off from the podcast at least, and the opportunities to step away and do some things I really wanted and really valued. When was the last time you truly unplugged? Several FILIGHTERs have been taking some vacation time recently, including some in our family. Others are still waiting to get their first post-lockdown air travel behind them. Still others have been on the road camping in their RVs or just driving to visit family. Many of our listeners also listen to the Choose 5 podcast and are familiar with the Red X term as a month during the year that's X'd out, and everyone else in the organization realizes and respects that the Red X person is not available during this month. Not everyone can simply block off an entire month, but surprisingly, several people may be able at least to block off full 2 weeks, which would include 3 weekends. Consider putting an X on your calendar and taking some time to recharge, reconnect, and recover from the past year that will long be remembered. Make some new memories. Replace some of the recent 2020 anomalies with some good times. Well, that was the easy medicine. Now for the tougher medicine. Okay, in segment 2, let's talk about taking action. During the wedding and other events previously mentioned, I had a few questions that consistently kept coming back. There's something like this.
You make it sound like investing is easy, but I just can't get started or increase my investing. Any ideas?
And the second question is along the lines of,
I really want to put more into investments in stock index funds, but I'm waiting until the market corrects. When do you think that will happen, and how low should I let it go?
These two themes stand between them and successful investing to build wealth and financial security. Both issues can be addressed through more education, and the steps are simple, so to speak. I'm referring, as you know, to the book we frequently discuss, A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Ask yourself, what happens to your long-term path to financial independence if you keep doing what you're doing now? Think about both questions we just heard. If you do nothing, where does that take you? If you try to time the market, how has that worked for you? In the lyric above, another day, another setting for another way. Let this be your inspiration for action. Whether you're in your 20s or in your 50s, these ideas can help you move off-center and get on a straight, more efficient and fruitful path to financial independence. Make this day your day for another way. Increase that 401k contribution, set up automatic investing, add an extra $100 to your car payment or mortgage payment. Make a change. Remember, your retirement horizon may be 20, 30, or 40 years out. Why does it matter? 2 reasons. One is that this is a long time to leave funds invested through ups and downs, but historically mostly ups, to achieve the long-term growth in equity investments. I've included several links in the show notes that provide annual returns of 3 major indexes: the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. The last time there was more than a single down year followed by one or more down years was back in 2000, 2001, and 2002. The previous time the 2 back-to-back down years occurred was back in the late 70s, prior to my investment experience. The point is simple. Pull your head out of the daily headlines designed for shock and awe and to sell advertising, and put on your long-term Rip Van Winkle headphones. When you wake up in 20 years and discover your portfolio is 3 times or 4 times bigger, you'll be glad you were persistent, continued to invest, stuck to your investment policy, and did not panic along the way when volatility or corrections appeared. If you would like to read more on volatility, investing stress, what we learned from the COVID market recovery, and more about the simple path to wealth, there are links to FILIGHTER blog posts 2.0, 3.0, and 6.0 for these topics in the show notes. Segment 3, the need for community. Many of us are experiencing the return to some level of normalcy after months of zombie life, Zoom meetings, isolation, and disconnectedness. COVID brought a mixed blessing for some areas in my life. First, the focused isolation and time to pursue other passions became an opportunity to make the FILIGHTER podcast dream a reality. Jonathan Mendonza created a community around a podcasting course, which led to several individuals launching successful websites, podcasts, and associated social media presences. In fact, one of those was Austin, the creator and host of the Matt and Board podcast you heard at the top of the show. Some of you may remember Heidi in episode 6, the creator of the family adventure podcast, Ordinary Sherpa. In any event, the FILIGHTER podcast was also created thanks to this course and the learning process. The course Jonathan developed was so detailed and focused that it truly guided us through the hard steps and technical challenges of setting up the infrastructure, best-in-class website, and social media designs, and overall just how to do it right. I know that sounds goofy and simplistic, but starting with a proven, successful model brings you far down the road to successfully launching any venture. Some of my peers have been tremendously successful, and others moderately successful. Still others are working on getting traction on their first episodes. I'm so thankful that Jonathan took action to create the course, and even more so that I was listening to a Choose Fi episode that promoted the exploratory Zoom call when he pitched the course, and ultimately I became an inaugural student in the first class. Many of us still meet on a regular basis to continue to learn from each other and hone our skills. The power of groupthink can be very encouraging and motivational to keep moving forward and, as is said, get 1% better. Many of us experience the hurdles falling in front of us as we solve each consecutive challenge and continued up the mountain on the journey to our ever-rising destination. Timing allowed us to pour our energy into largely self-reliant tasks to learn, create, and publish content. Arguably, that may have never happened otherwise, or at least would have been much more difficult to accomplish. This community opportunity was just what the doctor ordered. I routinely correspond with several of my classmates and look forward to check-ins with them. One of the attendees in that initial class pitch did not enroll in the course, but we continue to correspond and even Zoom from time to time between Spain and Texas. Putting yourself in opportunities to build or expand your community can be tremendously rewarding. I previously mentioned the East Texas mission trip that also served to reconnect with many of our community. These type of events provide normalcy in many ways and are literally therapeutic times of renewal. That brings us to the final topic, Segment 4, honoring your commitments to your passion or what you value. Personally, the FILIGHTER blog and podcast has brought me much joy and happiness as many FILIGHTERs are truly taking action and getting value out of these episodes. I have missed this creative process, and as I say, where you spend your time reflects what you value. Thankfully, my absence from releasing new material the past several months does not mean an end to the FILIGHTER community. Only a pause, as I did enjoy doing things that I valued, but also missed the intensity and commitment to continue routine episode releases. As a one-man show, that burden falls solely on me, and it fights for priority amongst family activities, property maintenance, and recreation. I have reflected quite a bit during this gap time and decided I do need and want to continue to bring the FILIGHTER community new content and continue to support you all in your path to financial independence. What did we learn today? Red X. Strongly consider a block of Red X time in your calendar. Make it happen. Many of us struggle to string a full week away from work or life. Consider if this is the year you stretch it to 2 weeks, or even a whole month. Imagine the perspective and how you and all those around you will feel after that time to refresh, recharge, recover, and renew. Make that Red X happen. Secondly, take action. Nothing can change without you deciding to make a change. It's up to you. This is true for investing, fitness, eating right, you name it. It won't happen without you making a commitment and following through with new behavior. Community. Reconnect safely with those in your community. Our family has all been vaccinated, and it's tremendously comforting to know we have a low likelihood of getting a severe case of COVID or infecting those we care about. Having been isolated for so long, it takes an effort to reach out to others and spend time in community. But man, it's rejuvenating. Finally, step back and think about your life. Are you honoring your personal goals and commitments? What do you value? And does your time spent reflect those values? Have you lost some of the passion you had for these goals? It's time to reflect, refocus, and recommit. Well, that's it for today's episode. But as always, a reminder to grow the gap. Income minus expenses is the gap. Grow the gap. The gap fuels your accelerated path to financial independence. We'd love to hear your thoughts on our content, areas you'd like to hear more about, and any feedback. Subscribe to the FILIGHTER podcast now to continue receiving content as it's published. We're excited you chose us and are committed to bring our community actionable content to be a catalyst for your pursuit of financial independence. If you're hungry for more, visit FILIGHTER.com. Buckle up, downshift, and dump the clutch. You're in for an accelerated ride into your financial future with Lambo, the FILIGHTER. Remember,
Nothing's far away, nothing's far away, nothing's near. Nothing's far away, nothing's near. Another day, another way, another day, another way. Hold me in the sun, in the rain, baby, baby. I can do the same.
and if you're still with us, today we'd like to thank Austin from Matt and Board at the top of the podcast. Good luck to Austin with his podcast. Also, special thanks to middle son Peter for reading the questions today. You have now heard all 5 of the Lambert family some point in the podcast over the life of the first 10 episodes. Wherever you are today, make it a great day. This is Lambo, the FILIGHTER. This episode was recorded July 24th and July 25th, 2021.